white lies. Get to the other side with it going on. Soldiers and fashion tracks, reverb, digital white lies. Above the watches will stay watch over the center.
Go tell Aunt Rhody, go tell Aunt Rhody, go tell Aunt Rhody, the old grey goose is dead. The one she's been saving, the one she's been saving, the one she's been saving to make a feather bed. She died in the mill pond, she died in the mill pond, she died in the mill pond, standing on her head. The goslings are crying, the goslings are crying, the goslings are crying, the old grey goose is dead.
It's like a ruin. Everyone you see is half asleep, and you're on your own, you're in the street. After a while you start to smile, now you feel cool. Then you decide to take a walk by the old school. Nothing has changed, it's still the same. I've got nothing to say, but it's okay. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
beat or two in my heart. I don't mind, there's nothing more to look for.
I was talking to a couple of Federal Bureau of Investigation agents, and they are a part of the Campus Subversive Kit up at the University of California. And they wanted to know what this meeting was for, because they noticed some of the people on the other side, during some of the more percussive effects of the quartet, were joining arms. You know that kind of thing? And I think this is indicative of a philosophy that's outmoded in the United States. And these fellas roam around the campus of the University of California and have a kit in 2 suitcases, see? And it has everything they need in it, like they have white bucks, so they can pose as students, and that's all you need. And mock coffee cups, those kind of things, so they can lean against corners, and so forth. And then they have this other suitcase with witnesses in it. That's the part. Now, I'd like a lot of you to know that probably the greatest part of the fight against subversion was done by Walter Winchell, who is a philosopher from New York City. And, everybody in New York is a philosopher. That's the home of East Coast jazz. That's any record without Shorty Rogers on it. See, just sort of, oh, I see, right there. See, Winchell started this contest in order to get some of the fellas who were anti-communist out on campus. Because when I went to school back around 1950 and 51, there were a lot of radicals on campus. A lot of guys who were waiting for the government to give them security, those kind of fellas. And there's a great deal of radicalism. I remember that a lot of us went into this parade in November. You remember Armistice Day? Well, that became Veterans Day by an executive order of President Eisenhower. And a lot of us were marching in the parade, camaraderie, the old days, 32nd Infantry Division. We're all marching carrying these flags. And we got fouled up down on Kearny Street in San Francisco, and it led to a good deal of bitterness, see, because our minds were poised for this, trigger quick. See, we were in this parade, and the line of march got sort of goofed, and we wound up in a line for Christmas work at the post office. Very bad. I can do it. Listen, that's the... So, and then you get down by the post office, and, an awful lot of things can happen to you there. I mean, if you know the post office. So that's run by the fellow who used to make Chevys for General Motors, and General Motors is bringing the Motorama through Carmel next week. I thought some of you'd like to know. And they have this terrific show, and they have a big sign that says, General Motors strikes back. You know that kind of thing? It's a great big exclamation, and it's a terrific show. And in it, they have a demonstration of how they make Corvettes, which are American sport cars, or don't turn any corners. You know what kind of a sport car? Good. They're made of plastic. As you know, it's very fine for roadside service. You can be fixed anywhere. And they're made sort of, they have a demonstration. They make them on this belt. And, have these kind of jet tube-like taillights, like an airplane, Air Force plane. And they're terrific. It shows how they make them. They get this plastic heated about 180 degrees Fahrenheit. And one fella starts to pull them while another one drives the car the other way. That kind of hot, it melts. It's very exciting. Now, the Motorama, of course, is presided over. They have pictures inside of all the fellows who went into the service, from General Motors. And the number is manifest, of course. And it says, our 2 contributions to the defense of our country. And there's a picture of Secretary Wilson, and then there's a picture of the V8 engine, which they gave for the M4 tank, full of tanks, 500 horsepower, 2 of them. So actually, that's just about the way it happened, too, chronologically. Wilson went into the Department of Defense, and then the contracts went through for the engines. That's amazing. It's true. So, I tell you, when I think about it, it's kind of a thrill just to think about it. And so I want to get back to this in a second about General Motors. The reason I mentioned it was, you see, the Corvette experimental car was given away by Walter Winchell in his campus subversion contest. And the idea was to bring out all the guys who weren't subversives at college to strike back. The kind of guys that believe in a free economy. The kind of guys that want to do things for themselves and aren't waiting for security and so forth. Those kind of like business administration people. Those kind of people? Perfect. So I was in the business administration department at that time, and I was ready to take my place in industry. And I thought maybe I'd work in an advertising agency, so I had bought a charcoal gray suit, which that time was quite a departure, as you know. And because modern science was looking for a color more somber than black, that kind of thing. This particular suit, you see, had, notice all the musicians have swung over, this being at the request of Jerry Mulligan and other instigators of the flame, and it was sort of, like 4 buttons, at that time. Most of the guys were going into 4 buttons because 3 didn't show you were really sincere, you had to get 4 buttons and 4 or 5 vents, all the way around. and a large stick pin which seemed to go through the body, you know, like thin tie it great, and huge cufflinks, you know, and made of some avant-garde material, you know, like, you know, made at home, at do-it-yourself stuff again, you know, well, you know, like maybe bronze alloy or copper, you know, some kind of a synthesis, you know, elk hide, you know, something terrific. Only the guys would cover them up, you know, they'd cover them up and just put regular redwood on top or something, you know, but underneath there'd be a terrific complicated system of pulleys, you know, college physics, and only they keep that hidden because the public isn't ready for it yet, you know. Right, you can't go too far, fellas. So, back, right, melody, no harmonics. So very interesting. So I bought this particular suit. I won't go into the pants. That's a little later. That has to do a 16-16. So you have to be very narrow. And then I got a crew cut and a pair of wrought iron glasses, which are favorite. That's true. See, a lot of people don't know that. They think they're just horn rims. So I was in business administration, and here the contest came. And Winchell said that he'd give away a Corvette, which was the end at that time. You know, you go out of your head, you know, with a straight-up wheel, you know, and power glide pretty far out. And you get this car if you'd write to him in 25 words or less and tell him why you were never in a communist party, which led people to all kinds of forms of inspiration, you know, especially college people. So we're all writing these terrific letters, you know. And of course, a guy in political science won at the University of California, which I think is, well, it's to be expected in a sense, because the people in liberal arts had the creative yearning, but they didn't have enough to say. You know, that kind of thing. Like they write, you know, I mean, they have a lot to say, those kind of people, and have a lot to say in class, but they usually don't have anything to say out of class. And I remember when I was at the university, that's true. When I was at the university, I'd always get gassed by some girl. You know, she looked like she was really terrific, great head, and she'd be sitting there and she'd challenge professors. You know, a lot of guys think that girls go to school to get married, but the ones I saw, never. You know, they just, 17 years old, and I'd see them risk a grade. It took them a year to build by challenging a member of the faculty, and that takes guts, you know. And we'd be sitting in some pertinent class like you know, Indian philosophy prior to 1857, you know, kind of. So, and it's pretty hard to get into, you know. And you know, the prof would say something, and they'd say, "And just why, Dr. Benson? Just why?" You know, very, you know, because of. And he'd say, "You know, this is not a debating society. It's the truth." And they'd say, "What is truth?" You know, a lot of that. So. That's right. So, thank you. So, and here you know, you talk to them out of class and nothing would happen. You meet these dames in the hall, you know, and they'd stand there and you'd say, "So, what's happening?" You know, or, you know, and it's nothing, you know, they just fall out. But, see, but the people in political science never fall out. That's the thesis this evening. They never fall out. They're terrific. And they wear jackets in cashmere and or tweed, which actually, you know, whenever anything wears out, they put leather on it. It's kind of a way of life. And terrific. And if you ask them what's happening, they always have something to offer. You know, let's say something, it might be, you know, pedestrian, but they give you something to take home and carve on a wall, you know. What's happening? So they say, well, power corrupts, you know, or something like that, right? Always something, kind of, right? Right, so you have something to say to a girl. So then the contest came up, and Winchell started in, you know, reading these letters. So about 25 million letters came in from all these college people. See, at that time, everybody was going to college, and because they were all veterans, and they had, you know, Public Law 346, or the GI Bill. And of course, before that, we had the Army, which was a form of therapy used by the United States Employment Service. What's going on? So, you know about this? So, still is, huh? Nothing's changed, I know. Well, except the T, oh, well, that's something else. So, anyhow, he got all these letters, Winchell. He was going out of his head reading them, you know. And those letters were coming in. They were saying, "I was never in the Communist Party because I believe in the dignity of man," or "I believe in the four freedoms of the Atlantic Charter, and no totalitarian state can enslave me," going on, you know. So, you know, the usual stuff. So, this guy at Cal won, and he wrote in, terrific, you know, and he wrote in, and he just spoke from the heart. And I think it's terrific, to be honest, basically, you know, have a basic, like, I mean what I say, fundamentalism, you know. And he just wrote in, and he said, didn't even exhaust the 25 words, which is a good case for brevity. And he said, "Mr. Winchell, I was never in a Communist Party because I've been at Cal 5 years now, and no one's asked me." And, yeah, you know, right? Great. So, amazing. Then the biggest problem came up. How are you going to get hold of the guys who were in, but are going underground, can't enter the contest? So it was decided by Winchell and the Board of Control to get the other fellows. You have to get the other fellows, and the idea was to bring them out from underground by giving them a consolation prize for sincerity. You know, kind of thing, like they made a mistake, and, they're willing to admit it. A lot of guys, during the 30s, and a lot of stuff was popular, and the folk songs, all that stuff. And they wanted to meet girls, and all that. So, you can hold them for bad taste, but not perjury. That's the thing. A lot of that. So, right? So you've been there. Well, so these fellows wrote in and they were to write into Winchell and say, I made a mistake and I'm sorry. And then a notary public would stamp that you're sorry. See, kind of like brand you there. And, there's some guy whose commission hadn't expired, and you'd write in, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Okay, it was out of my head. I was young. And then he'd say you're sorry, and you send it to Winchell, and he'd read it and pass on it for sincerity and whether you meant it. And with the letter, you had to include, after you said you're sorry, you had to include a list of at least 200 people whom you had known at these meetings and their telephone number and thing. See? And and then they'd be sorry. I think that's the point. It's kind of crazy. And then you'd get up in the morning and even the air seemed to be clearer. It's kind of an amazing day. It's very therapeutic. Well, now, one other point. Next Monday, just a couple of social footnotes tonight before we get into the movie. The Poetry Club up at Stanford University is going to meet on the peninsula, down on the farm, as they call it. And they had a little life up there last Monday when Gary Crosby, who's a budding radio star, incidentally, I'm going to be on the air with him next Wednesday evening. I don't know what time they're going to play the tape, but he's a budding star up there, and he's no longer at the Stanford University, possibly because television has made demands upon him, or possibly because he drove a 4.5 Ferrari through the student union last week. You know about this? So, great kid. So that's another story where you're both with the Columbia Broadcasting System, a very far-out organization. So anyhow, the Stanford University has this terrific poetry club, and I was up there at their last meeting last year, and I just want to give you one note, if I could, about it, because these kids are terrific. I was wandering around the campus looking for life, and I was looking in and out of fraternity houses, feeling nostalgic about my days at the university 4 years ago, and I saw these kids there, running around. It wasn't much radicalism. I thought you'd be glad to know that. There used to be, I would see at Cal was a lot by comparison. Guys are writing stuff on the sides of buildings, like, Yankee Go Home and all this. This. Oh, so the end. Boy, just the end. So and over nothing, nothing was immune from propaganda. Young heads used to go up in front of the bookstore where they had a big sign for the paper-made Capri, and they used to say, "Bankers approve," and guys would write, "I don't approve of bankers." So big, school. So life. So it's kind of a wild thing. So none of this around the Stanford University, just a couple of guys from their fraternity houses, and with crew cuts and yelling at girls, riding the boot of a '51 Chevy convertible, and no one driving, in the cars, one of those, and guys playing ping pong, or maybe guys, kind of zestful in the showers, hitting each other with towels, whang, a lot of that youth, and a couple of intellectuals smoking meerschaums and playing chess, not addicted to sports, and burning books in a fireplace, it's kind of separate group, right? So it's kind of exciting. So while I was walking around, there's this light in this building. It was about 8 o'clock at night, as I remember, and it said, "The Poetry Club of Stanford University is meeting tonight," and our guest speaker, and it was a transient cardboard sign, is Truman Capote. And it's kind of terrific because Capote's a big favorite of mine, and I wanted to go see him, so I could be one of the people say, I was one of the few people to see him alive. Those kind of quotations? He had a big thing about his mother. He's a genuine Southern writer. He doesn't dig his mother, and he speaks for the New South and how they're solving their own problems. A lot of people thought we'd need the National Guard to solve them, but they're solving their own problems, and if you'll keep your northern nose out of their business. Kind of an attitude? So, right. So, already they've ended segregation on the Supreme Court, and Tom Clark sits with the others and gets a robe. It's amazing, terrific progress. So, right. So, Capote is a genuine, his mother bugged him a lot. That's how he became a writer. A lot of you may have a hack situation with your old lady, and you can't make anything out of it positive, Well, he never got along with his mother. He used to play outside the house when he was 4 years old, and she'd follow him down the steps, and wouldn't let him cut the cord, kind of thing. Pretty dramatic, and she'd follow him, and, right. And she would, and she'd wail at him, and leave me alone, and she knew he was going out the house, so she'd just try to go along with the program, and she'd say, dabbing a tear away, very feminine, and she'd say, "Have a good time, darling," and he'd say, "Don't tell me what to do," Amazing. So they're wild. So Capote was going to speak there, you can imagine. See, now you know the excitement that was within my breast. So I went into this building, and when I walked in, all these people are sitting there, and, who were there for the meeting, and there's this guy from New York who's evidently like an exchange student. This guy, he has a kind of a toast jacket from the Ivy League. and a Tattersall shirt with stakes through his clavicle. You know, that's right. That mustn't become airborne. That's very important. So he's in there, and he's got a gavel, and he's yelling, you know, and they're all yelling, "Where's Capote?" Evidently, that's all he came for, you know. And he's rapping the gavel for parliamentary procedure, and he says, "Capote isn't here, and he will be here, but that's not the point. We have a magazine to put out." See, they do have a magazine. It's kind of a magazine of obscure poetry called Wither. You know what kind of a magazine? And it's a little green magazine, you know, a couple of poems. And he says, "I want everybody in here, if they want to keep their standing in the club, to submit at least 3 poems. You know, we all work together in this thing." So there was a lot of rebellion from the crowd, you know, like Brain Picker, you know, a lot of this. You know, like, so, that's right, you've been in this situation. So he got pretty hacked, you know, and he said, all right, I'll do it myself. You know, some men are leaders and some are followers, I'll do it myself. And a lot of people were rebellious again, yelling, "Unjustified egotism," you know, right? See, this justified is the best kind. Great. So as opposed, so this guy kind of, you know, he's beginning to flip, you know, and he's getting pretty sore, and they were all yelling, "Where's Capote? You know, we want, you know, like prisoners and everything. Where's Capote?" So he got pretty sore, and his kidney flipped, and he said, "You all want to see Capote because he's established, but you won't listen to me because I'm not established. That's the trouble with all of you, you know. You're insensitive to merit. The Greeks were right. There's no chance for talent in this country because there are no standards. I think talent is a handicap. I wish I was dead. The Greeks are right. What's the use?" You know, he's on his right. So, you know, screaming out of his mind, yelling, and he threw the gavel out, and he ran down toward the door. So I was standing by the door because I just come in at that moment, and he's yelling, "No one cares, no one listen, no one cares," you know, and running right toward me, and I didn't know what to do because I see this guy running at me, you know, here again, bitterness again, like in the last show, and it's sort of, you know, 20 years of bitterness running at me, you know, and you know, am I going to be a social worker or not? You know, here he comes, and he's stomping, you know, away like mad, and he's right through, you know, so he stopped, and I told him I'd like to listen to some of his work, so he handed me a book, and then he kept running, you know, because he was pretty charged up, and he went outside, and he went to a water fountain in the hall where they had 6 spigots, you know, and that's in case 6 people are ever moved to do this at once, you know, all right, you know, kind of collective, and then he came back in, and I looked at this book, and this guy, no wonder nobody listens to stuff pretty far out, you know, a lot of stuff like, you know, avant-garde words like garbage, you know, and a lot of realism, and perspiration, you know, and starvation, you know, a lot of things you're not ready for yet, that's what I mean, you know, right? So I thought this guy's pretty wig, you know, wig and a half. So he came back inside, and meanwhile, I heard this Buick Century outside with straight pipes and a stick shift, you know. So I looked outside, and this big seal on it, and it said Warner Brothers Pictures. And here comes Truman Capote, who's just finished a screenplay for them called Land of the Pharaohs, you know, which is all about Egypt and is based on a very commercial book you may have seen in the drugstores called Moses and Monotheism. And this is, you've seen it? Very good. It's by Sigmund Freud, and it tells. You know about this? Oh, it's a great book. So it tells, you know, all about how religion started in Egypt, you know, and all these guys were polytheistic, see? But this one pharaoh was pretty far out, you know, very avant, and he believed in one god. He was monotheistic. See, sort of like, you know, polytechnical high and monotechnical, you know, shop courses. So this, you know, and how this guy, he created the first god in Egypt, see, because all these other guys, you know, believed in gods of everything. They're very pagan in Egypt, you know. They carried rocks around their ankles, you know, little idols around their waists and their, you know, wrists and so forth. Terrible. And they believed in everything, you know, very materialistic religion. And, you know, the god of potatoes, and the god of rice, and the god of water, and the god of corn, and the god of the lakes, and the god of stones, but mainly starches. That's what runs through it. So mainly, that's one. So, but this, you know, this pharaoh, it tells in the book, believed in one god, and the first god, if you know your Egyptian history, was, I know that's why you're here tonight, the first god was named Ratan, who was the god of furniture, of course. And I thought that so now. So meanwhile, this is Capote's background. So Capote comes in, you know, and he's pretty quiet. He kind of like stands behind a tree until they call him out, you know, and they have 2 press agents there for Warner Brothers Pictures, and they say, all right, no one can talk, no interviews, no fraternizing, no autographs. He has a plane for Seattle in 15 minutes, that's all. He can read 1 poem, that's all. So he comes in with a big book, you know, and he starts reading poems. And he read 1 poem, which is called Grass, which we're going to close with tonight, so you may leave in an ethereal light after the film, of course. And it's a great poem, and he read it himself. And of course, I can't imbue it with any of the virility he did, but I think it's so strong and material-wise that it'll come through anyway, the indigenous strength of this poem. It's terrific the way he read, you know, just out of his head. And he got up and started to read, and all these people were waiting to hear him. See, there were 11 people there. And I forgot to tell you, this is, I think the enrollment there is about 13,000, you know, and they don't usually get such a big turnout unless they have a name, they told me, you know. It's kind of like, you know, great. So that's in case any promoters are listening. So, great, well, he got up to read, and these people were there, and everybody dug him, all 11, except this bug from New York, but he was a nonconformist anyway, you know. He was swearing, you know, and everything. So, yeah, so Capote started in, you know, and he read this poem called Grass, and it's terrific. He just opened up, you know, and he just had this big book, and just, Grass! just like that. So kind of let it hang there like that. And this girl across the aisle from me who was kind of, she's really liberal. You know that kind of a girl? Really liberal. And and liberal and grim. And she's sitting next to me and she gave me a big elbow on her ribs. So I said, what's up? And she said, there's symbolism in that grass. See, and I had thought of it. Wait, here we go. So, I got pretty gassed, so in the meanwhile he was reading, and he's saying, green grass, blades of green grass, building up here a lot of cumulative, momentum. And then she said, he's going to build these modern rhythms. Hang on, great, very eclectic. And he's going, blades of green grass, thin blades of green grass. Then he took a deep breath. It was the funniest, because we're all off balance emotionally anyway, So he lets go, with this big sledgehammer, and just a wave, and it just kind of like fallout, He just like going, he said, long, thin blades of green grass, just like that, So, it was the funniest thing at that moment, because I was in such rapport with the man, I felt that he had spent himself emotionally, just out. And, well, I know it sounds funny, see, but he was kind of like, there's only so much in a man. Let's put it like that. And right, guts. And he fell out at that moment. He did, and he was carrying along on kinetic energy, and he's saying green grass, kind of out of it, So these press agents were really worried, the wings, and then he grasped, and he's out of his head, and he went, ugh, and he fell out. So, excuse me. So isn't this exciting? They dragged him over in the wings, these two press agents, and they didn't have an integrated program, because one guy gave him a stimulant and the other gave him a sedative, which can be the end at the right kind of a party, but I mean here, wasn't indicated. So he was pretty much out of it, but it didn't matter because we were out of it too. I mean, we were emotionally spent, most of us ourselves, because you only get so much of this in a capsule and you can take so much, and most of us were beginning to walk out of the room, you get? Oh, wow, yeah, very powerful. So this fellow from New York got up and grabbed his gavel again. He said, just a minute, you fools. He was out of his head, The meeting isn't over. I have some polls of my own to read. Just a minute. Wait, they'll be in bad standing. But nobody cared, Everybody's walking out, and this guy's probably a manic depressive today because of this, because everybody was walking out, no one listened to the poor guy, he's screaming, wait, you fools, and then as a show of bravado, being only 20 years old, he opened up a book and started reading his own poems to an empty room, and I didn't get to hear him, we all left, and as I walked out and the door slammed, I just heard him start something real obscure, something about weeds, and he went, amazing, tremendous, so, one other thing I want to talk about, for any fellows that are here from Fort Ord, as a matter of fact, because they always like to talk to servicemen, seeing as I was in the 32nd Infantry Division, which worked in the Allied military government in the Pacific. I know what you're going through, because I was Allied military government of an island named Suki-Ran, which is kind of Japanese, and is near Okinawa. It's a kind of a hunk of coral out there, and I was in charge of these 4 natives who were out there, who had no language, and who sat in trees, literally eating leaves, those kind of people, and my job was to save them from communism. And that's right. Now these. It ain't easy, actually, what we wanted to do was get them to fish. Get out there and get an organized society. Just 4 of them. Maybe they didn't have any drive. And you give them tests. And you never get anywhere. Mental tests or the cooter interest test. That was the one. Aha. Which every one of them flunked, I might add, young man. Shows you, don't drive, don't set up. So we gave them the test. The idea was actually to organize a society. The strongest 2 guys would fish. One would make the boats, and the other one would make nets to fish with. Then when they brought in a good catch, they could eat, through the lean winter months. 4 or 5 months are very lean, a lot of storms and all. They could eat, and then they could have money when they sell a fish to the other 2 guys to buy a bigger boat, or maybe make a payment, and then, move, and then payments, and then more boats, and more fish. And when we left that island, remember they had a parade for us and everything, and we went away and we made our report to the Pentagon, in which we showed that in 12 short months, we had showed these people how to live off each other instead of the land, which isn't easy. Remember this kind kind of inspiring in its own way. And some of you remember the 32nd Infantry Division, which is a pretty wild outfit, although General MacArthur didn't dig us. As you know, he has a leather jacket. He was in command of the Pacific at that time. He has a leather jacket with the patches of all his outfits. But of course, no jacket is expansive enough for all his subordinate organizations at that time, so he had to screen them. And he'd only put on the ones that were 65% or more enlistees. He didn't want any draftees because he felt it was a low morale rate, as a matter of fact. So he would, just wear patches like the atomic bomb unit, which used to have a question mark and a large mushroom-shaped cloud done in Angora, off the end of it. That's true. So terrific. So all that, and when he used to have all these terrific credos, the armored organizations used to wear a patch. It was nothing but violence. It was so violent that guys would add new violence every month. They'd go out of their minds, young guys especially, and sadism would feed on sadism, and would have a tank firing a charge and driving over someone's head, obviously the enemy, and the tank commander would be leaning out of the top with a bolt of lightning in one hand and a machine gun, a live machine gun firing in the other, an M3, and then he'd have his shirt off, and if you look minutely with a magnifying glass, you can see there are fingernail indentations in his shoulder blades. Very violent patch. And and he'd wear this, and it was, terrific. So it got so violent that a general from the Pentagon flew in, and he said, you can't do this anymore because violence feeds on violence. I said before, and it'll be terrible. We're going to standardize. So he said, well, how can we tell one outfit from another? So he said, you'll write credos underneath, and you won't write them in Latin, write them in English so people will get it right away, very commercial. And, guys would write things like Hell on Wheels, the 2nd Armored, or We Came to Fight, which is the 48th, and then a lot of dispirited outfits like the 32nd, as I said, which were things like the kind of thing General MacArthur disapproved of, like It's a Living, we're here. So I think, yes, it is inspiring, isn't it? Okay, so it's been real good to talk to you, and I understand, I guess Jimmy will be coming back now, and I'm going to come out front and we'll rub elbows, okay? Okay, we'll see you later. Thank you very much.
let it linger on. The thrill is gone. The thrill is gone. The thrill is gone. I can see it in your eyes. I can hear it in your sighs. Feel your touch and
श्रीधर सांवरो चपल नैन की मोर चंद्रिका श्रीधर सांवरो सांवरो मोर चंद्रिका मोर चंद्रिका श्रीधर सांवरो चपल नैन की कोर झुक रे तो न मुरली गिटर झुक रे झुक रही सुन मुरली की ढेर झुक रही मुरली की ढेर मुरली की ढेर झुक रही रही सुन मुरली की टेरा झुक रही झुक रही सुन मुरली की टेरा झुक रही सुन पनिया के पनिया के मिस निकसी ग्वालन गौ आवन की बेर झुक रही सुन झुक रही सुन मोर चंद्रिका श्रीधर सावरो हर सावरो 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 मोर चंद्रिका श्रीधर सावरो चपल नैन की को परमानंद प्रभु परमानंद प्रभु मिलरी खरक में राधे बनी घेरे परमानंद प्रभु परमानंदी परमानंद प्रभु मिलरी खरक में आई भई बेर रे अब झुक रही मुरली की टेरे झुक रही हो गई मुरली झुक रही मुरली की झुक रही सोने मुरली की अब मुरली की टेर झुक रही सुन अब झुक रही सुने मुरली की टेर झुक रही अब मुरली की अरे झुक रही जुगरानी सुन मोर जुगरानी जुगरा सोन मोर